students, I am Nisha Sindhi and I am taking 5th standard English subject. Today's topic is lesson number 5, Hans Christian Andersen. Hans Christian Andersen. So students, in your previous class, you have learned the story about the Hans Christian Andersen. Hans Christian Andersen's father was a poor shoemaker. Even though they were very poor, they had a good collection of books. They were very poor, even though they have a good collection of books. Every evening, Hans' father read aloud to him stories from famous books. When Hans was 11 years old, his father died. Hans' father died when he was 11 years old. Hans had to leave school because there was no money for his school education, school fees. His mother wanted him to become a tailor and earn some money, but Hans wanted to be a writer. Hans had no brothers and sisters and no friends. He was lonely child. He was a lonely child. The boys in the town teased him, used to tease him. No one played with him. No one played with Hans. No one played with Hans, but Hans got the chance to hear stories from many people. He had a gentle and loving grandmother. She told him many stories. He also made friends with some women at hospital for old and sick women. These women also told him many stories. Now let us continue the lesson Hans Christian Andersen. When Hans was 14 years old, he left his village and went to a big city. Now when Hans became 14 years old, he left his village. He left his village and he came to big city. He went to the big city. He wanted to become an actor and a writer. Hans want to become a actor and also a writer. He want to write a stories. He want to become a writer. But he soon realized that to become a writer, he needed to learn how to write without mistakes. But before he became a writer always be a perfect. He has to write without mistakes. So Hans realized soon that to become Hans realized soon that to become a writer he needed to learn how to write without mistakes. Without making any mistakes, he had to write. He had left school at an early age. He had left school at an early age. At the early age, at very small age, he has to leave the school. So he needed to go back to school. In the city, he met many famous writers and actors. He left his village and went to a big city. And in big city, he met many famous writers and actors. Some of them felt writer means those who write the stories or books, and actors means those who act in the play or act in the pictures. Some of them felt sorry for him and helped him to get admitted in big school. So when he met the many famous writers and actors, he explained his he explained his life story, and some of them felt sorry for him, so they helped him to get admitted in a big school. By this time he was a big boy of 17 years. Now he turned to 17 years old. Now he was a big boy of 17 years. But he knew very little. So he was put in the second grade. He has left he has left left school at the early age, so he had knew very little. So he was to put in the second grade. The other boys made fun of him. The other boys made fun of him because at the 17 years he has to put in the second grade. But Hans did not give up hope and worked very hard instead. But Hans did not give his hope. He was full of hopes and confidence. He was never hesitated and he worked very hard. He worked very hard. He passed the school final examination when he was 23 years old. Hans passed the school final year examination when he was 23 years old. At the age of 23, he passed the final year examination. Hans now started writing. Now, after the completion of his education, after the passing the school final examination, he started to write at the age of 30. Now at the age of he turned the 30 years old. Now at the age of 30 he started to write. He finished his first book of fairy tales. Now he started to write at the age of 30 and he finished his first book of fairy tales. When it was published, people liked the stories very much. When the Hans book was published publicly, people liked the stories very much that he has written. The Hans has written the stories. People started to like his stories very much. He soon became famous as a writer for children. Public started liking his stories very much, so he soon became famous as a writer for children. For children, he became very famous as a writer. Hans used to act out. He used to act out the stories to make them lively. So, act out means to show how an event happened by pretending to be the people who were involved in it. He used to act out the stories to make them lively. Lively means very interesting. Children loved him and his stories. Children loved Hans and also his stories, and he began to write more and more stories for them. Now Hans became very confident because people and children started liking him and his stories. Now he began to write more and more stories for them. He wrote 156 fairy tales in all. Totally, he wrote 156 fairy tales in all. To write all these stories, Hans used ideas from the ones he had heard as a child from his father, his grandmother, and the old woman in the hospital. Now, when Hans started and Hans began to write the stories, Hans also used the ideas from the he had heard the stories from when he was child. He heard the stories from his father, grandmother, and the old woman in the hospital. He also made up many stories of his own. Also, he made many stories, his own stories. He got ideas from his own childhood days and from everyday things such as flowers, trees, birds, animals, children, and their toys. He also got ideas from his own childhood, what he had experienced in his childhood days, and from everyday things such as flowers, trees, birds, animals, children, and their toys. He also got ideas. Thus, the shoemaker's son became a very famous, right? He is the son of shoemaker. So, the son of shoemaker became very famous writer. He was no longer lonely and he had many friends. In his childhood, he has no friends, but now he had many friends. He had no longer lonely. Hans died when he was 70 years old. Hans died at the age of 70 years old. Even today, children and grown ups all over the world love his stories and love him for writing them. He died at the age of 70 years old, but today also children and the grown up people all over the world love his stories and love him for writing that stories. So students, hope you understood the lesson Hans Christian Andersen, how the shoemaker's son became very famous writer. So it does not matter from which background you belong to. It's a matter of only hard work, confidence and belief in yourself. To achieve a success in your life, you must have the hard work, self confidence and believe in yourself. So students, hope you understood the lesson. Now it's time to take the homework. Write all the keywords from the lesson Hans Christian Andersen, page number 36 and 37. Write in your English homework notebook and send on WhatsApp. Thank you.